Facebook's, the MySpace, which isn't very popular here, but in the States it is, Twitter, any number of different experiments. Do you think the best of the best are going to stay or hang around, and eventually some of these other ones are just going to become superfluous?
Completely. We're also going to see a struggle for sustainability business models. Twitter is one of the big debates. Is how is Twitter ever going to make money? And there's talk certainly of Twitter introducing advertising and kind of a premium service. And in the next few years, we're going to see the ones who succeed at monetizing. I hate that word, but it does mean something.
Making a buck.
And monetizing their services last. Facebook is well, I mean, they had that huge injection of cash when they were purchased, and there's advertising, but there's a debate about Facebook advertising, and there's also debate about Facebook's global presence and whether the users in the developing world, which may soon outnumber users in.
But I think aren't we per capita one of the biggest users of Facebook as a nation?
We are, yes, according to Alexa.com, which is a website that measures traffic to websites. You can put in any URL and find out where that website stands in the country. Facebook is the #1 site used by Trinidadians, ahead of Google.
But isn't that also because Facebook automatically refreshes every few seconds, and therefore it will be getting hits over and over again? Once you have a page open, it's constantly refreshing. That being said, I don't know anybody who's not on Facebook these days.
No. I'm not too sure how they measure it, but the fact is that the people in Trinidad seem to be accessing Facebook more often than Google, which...
Is that because we're just naturally social, or we're Macos, or what is it exactly?
I think Facebook really meshed with a lot of, the aspects of what it means to be a Trinidadian. The lime, Macoing, sharing.
Who is a friend, kind of thing.
Exactly, the kind of social competition. Sharing information that may not necessarily be edifying, but is titillating or interesting.
Right.
There's a lot of that going on Facebook, and it's the way we interact. And I always tell people, it's like, depending on what kind of bar you hang out in, you might have a different experience. So if you have friends on Facebook who only party, that's what they're going to write about, and it has nothing to do with Facebook, the platform. It has to do with who your friends are. I have a pretty diverse kind of Facebook community of friends because of the job I do. Most of my colleagues are abroad, and a lot of them are working in social media, and some of them are work colleagues. So I'm getting a very, very, very strange mix of, I whined till my waist hurt last night, and here's this great article
was interesting.
on how social media intersects with identity politics, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I find I have the same sort of weird mix of things as well. In terms of how we interact as a society, has the web helped or hurt or just degenerated us into a bunch of lazy people sitting around on our computer screens?
Well, I still see people, partying and they're driving around in their cars. I don't think people are sitting at home all the time on their computers, but they're certainly doing it more than they used to, because we also have better internet access. In the days of dial-up, sitting looking at your computer was not a rewarding experience.
Right. But
I think that some of the leisure time that could be spent doing other edifying things,
tweeting or Facebooking.
Yeah, exactly.
But I mean, you wouldn't pick up the phone and call all your friends at once and say, "Listen, I'm going to the bathroom."
No.
But you would put that as a Facebook update. I mean, maybe not, but something as trivial as that.
Yeah.
So isn't it trivializing our lives to some extent?
If those are the kinds of messages you're sending out, to a certain extent, yeah. I think you'd be better off not doing it than doing it. But on the other hand, I think there's also a desire for connection that those kinds of updates kind of highlights. That there may be a side of us that wants people to kind of share in the intimate details of our lives, though we should not complain people know things about us.
Right.
I always say that, you put online what you, my rule is that I would not put online something that I wouldn't share with a good acquaintance. So,
Which brings up privacy. A lot of
Yeah.
people seem to be pretty cavalier about how they deal with their privacy online.
and those are often the ones who complain the most. It's very, very strange that I find that the people who have a pretty strong boundaries around the kinds of things they put online are often not the ones concerned about privacy, but the ones who would say, I whine till my waist hurt with somebody else's husband. They
Right.
might be the ones who are like, oh my God, people are in my business. I'm like, no.
Oh, you put down you put down your actual birthday on online. You put down your mother's maiden name, and then you worry why somebody got into
Yeah.
your account at the bank.
Or relationship status is one of the controversial ones in Trinidad. Because we are such a close-knit society, when people change their relationship status, which actually can be simply because they haven't, they didn't have the fact that they were married before, and today they decided, oh, I'm married, let me tick that. And it suddenly says, Vernon Ramesar is married, and everybody thinks you've just got married. And then
you get 2,000 responses on your Facebook page.
Exactly. And then when you decide to remove that, then it's a whole situation, oh my God, has Vernon, is he divorced, or has he, broken up with whatever? And so, there are all those little aspects. The thing about Facebook is you don't have to use every single feature. I don't use a lot of the features of Facebook. There are very few services, all of whose features I use, but certainly Facebook, there's a layer of little applications like the vampire poke and the contests and all that are quite popular in this market, but that I personally have no interest in. And I still
don't get
use
the whole
Facebook.
poking thing. I never understood what that was about on Facebook.
Yeah.
But I guess what Facebook is really, it was geared towards young people, wasn't it? And
It
what's
was
happened in
geared towards
Trinidad, you've got a
university
huge
students.
skew now of people of all ages sort of
Yeah.
going on.
Yeah. It's actually an older demographic than MySpace was, for instance, and that MySpace is in this market. MySpace is still quite a young person's thing. No, you have people. I have Facebook friends of who are my parents' contemporaries and who are quite avid users too. So it's interesting. I think it's again, I like to look upon these things as platforms. They're not about the content. We make the content. Certainly, the design of Facebook does influence how the content is presented and how you interact with it. But still, it doesn't have to be all bad. They're great uses. I raised funds I raised $3,000 US for Jeffrey Chalk using Facebook, and that is I raised funds from people who didn't know Jeffrey as well, but because they were my Facebook friends, they decided to support this cause. Then sharing information. I have long debates. I make a point of trying to put things on Facebook that are not as trivial as they.
Well, you like to spark debate. Be honest about it, George. I mean, because recently you put the thing about Kevin Valdeo saying.
Yeah.
And that, well, I joined in that one as well. But
I think.
And quick response to that.
Yeah, it's like a really, I like to think I'm hosting a line for thinking people on my Facebook page.
And that ideally is what the new media should be used for, isn't it? I mean, thinking.
That's what at its best, I guess. Yeah, it should
it's
be
productive.
causing us to kind of